and welcome to another brand new episode here on Sunnyside at Farms. How are you all doing? Hope you're all having a good day. My day not going too bad. Starting very late today, recording. I sort of kind of find that I get sort of every, probably once a week, at some point in that week, I get to the stage where I have to do sort of like where I've kind of sort of caught up, and then I have sort of lots of little things to do to kind of keep so that when you come back we're not just doing the same thing again. So it's sort of I've had to sort of skip for a few months and well, not skip them, but do the work and what have you. One thing we're going to do today is I'm going to show you the progress we've been making at the pig farm. So when the last episode that you saw last Friday, we were in November and we had pretty much just started doing that area. Well, we've got on really well down there. It's not been easy, and that's been a lot of hard work, but we have got on sort of fairly well, and yeah, the job has been good. I think I filled this one. We're about to find out. Yep. And yeah, so as I say, we've got on really good down there. We've got a little bit of money now, so we've sold some of our stone. It's worthless. It really isn't worth a lot. That's about the money that we've got there. I think is about 5 train loads. So, but the alternative was to do it as lime, and if I'd have done it as lime, then we would have probably had that after about 1 load of lime, and that's the difference. You get about 4,400, I think it is, for 1,000 litres of lime, whereas you get £150 for 1,000 litres of stone. So it's a massive difference. It's a £4,000 difference, sort of thing, or over £4,000 difference. And the one thing I didn't want to do when sort of kind of doing the digging that we're doing down there and the sort of leveling and everything that we're doing down there, the one thing I didn't want us to do was to do that area and then suddenly we'd be like multi-millionaires, you know what I mean? Like, that sort of didn't really seem the point or worth it. So as I say, we or I decided to do the stones as the sort of kind of, we'll just sell the stones as the sort of the sellable project, because the thing is, doing something like that, you would have had a sellable commodity from doing that. It would have been topsoil, or it would have been soil sort of thing, like, but as I say, we've got we get gravel from it, or stones from it, as I say, which we could turn into lime. I mean, if I used lime in the actual, I would do it that way, because we could just literally keep producing lime, store it in a grain shed, and then we would never ever need to buy lime. But I don't tend to use lime, as you'll know, just because I've never done it on the farm. I mean, like, we used to do it for a head of potatoes, but we didn't really do it ahead of anything else. And the farm that I worked on was very up on all the modern techniques and technologies and everything else, and I'm fairly certain that had it have offered a huge benefit, that they would have been doing it. It would have been something that they would have been doing, and they just didn't. And so therefore I just find it a bit sort of tedious to do on here. But right, we've got that done. I can leave the trailer here, because obviously we'll need to redo those again, but we need to go back to the the first actually thing we need to do is go to the sheep, because I haven't been here for a little while. Why on earth is that David Brown there? I don't know. Yeah, honestly, you see some things on Farming Simulator and you think, huh? I think I know why he's there, but he shouldn't have been anywhere near that. And the other thing as well is the people that made the auto drive course, why did they make it come through a sheep field where there's 2 closed gates? Because you're not going to have the gates open, are you? Because the sheep are obviously going to get out, aren't they? It just, like, that seems a bit odd. Oh, they've still got a grass bale. That's fine. Or hay bale, actually. So that's fine. But I would imagine that their water needs topping up. I don't actually know how much water's in the thing. Oh, it's a full barrel. Ah, there we go. That's grand. So they didn't need sort of doing too much at all, really. What I'll do is I'll go out that way as well. I'll turn that David Brown around, and yeah, look, he's seen the open gate. Look, there's me, you know, going on about, oh, why did they do that? And there's no open gates here, and I've left the gate wide open. Never mind. No one noticed, right? Anyway, we'll open that. We'll get on that. Yeah, so that's why he's there. I don't know why he's there, because he was actually at the chicken farm, and I put him on to fill the chicken feeders up, and he sort of buggered off, and I sort of thought, oh, he's clearly got a set route where, you know, he's got to go somewhere to get back to kind of then get onto the, I think I should have gone the other way, well, no, it's that way, to get onto the, you know, the path that he needs to be on, sort of thing. But then he buggered off and I couldn't sort of see him, and then I sort of forgot about him, and because I just kind of thought, oh, he's obviously left me and he's never coming back, and he's taken one of my tractors and trailers. But there he was. He was at the sheep farm. He was checking on the sheep. He was doing sterling work elsewhere. So yeah, fair play. Right, we'll just get our New Holland. Yeah, well, our Ford, isn't it? It's not a New Holland. We'll get our Ford out of here, and then we will get on. Right, today we've got some spraying to do, so we're going to crack on with some spraying today. We've got all of the fields to spray today, so I thought while we were doing that, I'd probably do a little bit of a sort of kind of chatty video, and we would as I say, that's what we'd do today, because the work is fairly sort of what can I say, it's fairly steady today. What I'll do is we'll go down quickly and have a look at what I've done down at the pig farm, and then we'll drive back. I think I may have missed my turning. I did. So okay, I think we can get out of this end. I get lost in my own farm. That's how crap I am. Never mind. I think we can go this way. That's the house. Yeah, there we go. Alright, so what we'll do is, as I say, we'll go down quickly and have a look at the pig farm, and then we'll come back, and then, as I say, we've got some spraying to get on with. I can't actually sell the eggs yet. We haven't got a lorry down there, because the lorry down there that we're using. So for those of that have perhaps not seen all of this series, that I'm on the wrong side of the road. That's because it's because I've been playing on American maps. For those that have not seen all of this series, so we've got a lorry and an Arctic trailer refrigerated for the eggs that we sell to the supermarket, but we kind of use that lorry as the sort of lorry that the supermarket would use, even though we have to drive it ourselves, to sell out. If I could speak, it would be really helpful, to sell our eggs so at the supermarket. So we rent, so that we're actually paying a price for a firm to, you know, effectively come and collect our eggs and sell, you know, and take them to sale on our behalf. We've hired the lorry and the trailer, Well, we've hired the lorry and a bulk trailer as well, because that lorry also does come and do any grains that we have to sell and stuff like that. And so therefore I've hired them so that I'm continually paying each, I can't remember if it's a day or an hour, I'm paying a higher price. And it does work out quite expensive that way, but when you then put that into relation of how much I get for my eggs, I think it kind of balances out. Overall, I think, as I say, I think it does kind of balance out a little bit. So I'm not, it's a cost I don't want, but then I can't afford a lorry, so swings and roundabouts, and it's the sort of workable solution. Because the one thing I don't want with any farming simulator, sort of save that I do, whether it be for YouTube or whether it be for myself, sort of thing. I don't want to make free money. Do you know what I mean? I want everything I get. I want to earn, and I want to work for, and so I've had sort of people say, oh, you play such long-winded games. Why don't you speed it up a little bit? Use an unrealistic capacity trailer, or you use a wide cultivator that is 50 meters wide or something. And it's like, but there's no fun in that. That would be like playing Football Manager and saying, well, I'm going to be a really rubbish team because I want a challenge, but I'm going to have Ronaldo, Messi, and all of them in the team. Do you know what I mean? Like, well, what's the point? Because you're going to end up winning anyway. I mean, don't get me wrong. This is not a hard game. Even on hard, this is not a hard game. I've never got to the point where I've kind of bankrupted the farm because I'm just losing money and I can't make money. If you can't make money at Farming Simulator with how unrealistic crop prices are, even on hard, they're very, very unrealistic and very high compared to what farmers are getting, in the real world. If you can't make money, I guess it's not a case of people can't make money, or I guess it's just a case that people don't want to sit here for hours, going up and down with a 3-meter cultivator or drill or whatever, because they're a small farm, whereas for myself, I enjoy it, that I get a lot out of, sort of doing that, and so therefore, as I say, I really like it. It's for me, sort of thing, because I did it in real life, so I guess that's kind of where it comes from, is that, I know you don't, become a millionaire overnight. I work for farm. Don't get me wrong. The 2 farms that I work for, I was very lucky to work for 2 good farms. Yeah, one was only sort of roughly between 1,000 and 1,100 acres, and it was a well-run, family-run farm. Just father and son ran the farm. And it was definitely the best place for me to gain my experience and to learn and to sort of do sort of things like that. Just really quickly, I don't know if I've showed you that. The brakes aren't so good on that. I don't know if I've showed you this before, but I discovered this a little while ago, and this is going to be absolutely ideal because it's just down the road from our pig farm. And we can have cattle up here. Now, what I'm thinking is, because it's got grain storage as well, which is really helpful, we could take down some of these sheds and stuff, but where is it? Am I not at the right farm? Because I haven't seen what I was expecting to see. Let me just try and find the flashing arrow, which I cannot find. Just move around a bit. No. Yeah, I am where I thought I was. That's very interesting. There should be a cow barn down here. There literally should be a cow barn just there. Oh, there it is. I'm on the wrong side. Shh, no one knows. So I was thinking we could. I can't believe. Just made myself look a right numpty. Right, so yeah, I'm sure there was a car barn that side as well. Oh well, it doesn't matter. But what I was kind of thinking was we could have beef cattle in there, in that little yard there. We could have our beef cattle, not many, but just a few. But down here, on this field here, I was thinking maybe in the future, it's potatoes this year, but in the future, when we are considerably richer than what we are now, I was thinking we could turn this over to grass and then set up a dairy barn somewhere down here, probably here, somewhere where it's flat anyway, and then have that as a massive dairy field and a big dairy barn. And I've kind of sort of thought that would be really good. I mean, we're a long way from being able to afford the land and everything that goes here, because obviously not only do you have to buy the farm, but we also have to buy the surrounding land as well. So, you're looking at probably getting on for about 2 million altogether. So we're a long way from ever being able to afford this. But if I was to run a real farm, I would always be thinking future. Where do I want to get? I think, like the first farm that I worked on, they had reached somewhere where they were quite happy with, and they didn't have no intentions of expanding. They had no intentions of getting any smaller, but they didn't have any real intentions of getting any bigger. And they were just really happy with the point they were at, whereas I couldn't be like that. I would be sort of like, we got our little chicken farm, and I was thinking, right, once we start earning the money out of the eggs, that we're going to earn, I was sort of thinking, then we can go and buy, some more land. And then it was kind of like I discovered the pig farm, and it was like, oh, actually, if we'll buy a pig farm, that's what we'll do. We bought the sheep, the little sheep farm. We bought that farm to extend the farm so that we had a little bit more room for our equipment and stuff. And I just sort of thought, I'm always thinking, right, what's the future? Where do we expand? What land do we get? What buildings are we going to try and buy? And as I say, like, I'm constantly looking around and thinking, could do something with that. Oh yeah, I could do something with that. Yeah, as I say, it's just constantly, all the time, looking for new opportunities. What we can get some cows that will bring, over 10 years, that will start to make good money and start to repay itself, and eventually, we'll start making good money from that. And it's just all the time. I'm just constantly sort of driving around looking. I mean, call me ridiculous, right? But I saw this land here, right, and the field over there, right. Now they're separated by sort of like a big mound of earth, right? But I was thinking, and this is what I'm like, this is how I play the game for myself, right? I was thinking, there's two options here. We could level that out, which I think we're going to end up buying our own excavator in the end, because if we can get one in the sale for cheap, because it's really going to help us, to carry on, because it's costing a fortune at the moment to hire the two machines that we've hired. But I was thinking, we could level this out, and we could then have one big field. So basically that field would then become that part of that field, and then we would have a big field. Or I was thinking, on the smaller side of the field, if we didn't level it out and we kept the bank, we could build houses on here, and then make them available for sale, or make them available for rent, or whatever, and then we could earn more money that way, because it's a sort of small field that's a bit oddly shaped. For someone that's done drilling and spraying, sort of quite a lot in his sort of farming career, I can tell you that is going to be one awkward field to drill and spray, because of how it narrows in, and then the bit out there, it's going to be, sort of, you're not going to make much of a job of it. So I'm sort of looking at that thinking, could put houses on there. And that's what the first farm did. They had a couple of fields that were, you know, sort of a bit awkward and odd, and although they didn't build the houses themselves, but they got the planning permission and then sold the land and the planning permission, and made, you know, quite a lot of money out of it. They had another awkward little field, and they sold that to the water board, and the water board put a lagoon in there, you know, that took sewage and turned it into fresh water. You know, and on the basis of that particular sort of piece of business, they bought a brand new John Deere combine. You know, so yeah, as I say, you know, I'm always looking, you know, you know, where's the opportunity? Where's the option? You know, or the opportunity to make some money? You know, to do some stuff. But anyway, we don't need to go all the way down here. I'll just climb over the Fendt. I'll just turn my tractor off this time. So that's how far I've got, which possibly doesn't look that far from November, but believe me, that's a lot of work. That is a great deal of work. But yeah, so that's how far I've got, and the grass areas I've left because they've not been leveled yet, so that, you know, they still need to be leveled. But what I've sort of done now that I've got so I've obviously done that, and then got to there, and then I've cleared all the stone up, and now, like I say, I'm just going along with the bucket and just scraping the ground around here and leveling it all off and trying to sort of join it up here and what have you. So yeah, it's as I say, it's been going really, really well down here. I'm really sort of pleased, and, you know, of how it's been going, and looks pretty good. But I say it does need leveling here. The other thought that I had as well is, because originally, I'll just show you. Originally, where are we? There we are. It just take a second or two to load this. I haven't got the money, so I can't accidentally put it down, thank goodness, because I'm likely to do that. But originally, I was going to have it go that way across, but actually, I'm going to have it go that way and go there, because I don't need to go much further back now, which then means I won't be disturbing the landscape here. I've got plans for this field. I've got plans for out the back here. Obviously, we've got the houses there, and we need to be mindful. We need to be respectful as well, so that we don't put nothing too noisy there, because, you know, we want to keep sort of friends with our neighbours if we can. But I've got plans for that, for stuff that can just be run through the day but then turned off overnight. But yeah, I was thinking if we could put that way, we wouldn't have to take as much ground this way, obviously, to fit it in. And that would leave more room eventually for our solar panels and wind turbines and stuff, because obviously that's raised ground. That's, you know, on quite a steep hill, as you can see from how we're flattening it. And so I thought, if that goes there, you know, sort of there, we've got to take a little bit more away that way, and obviously then take it across to the trees this way, so that we've got a nice wide area. But yeah, then I sort of thought, you know, the solar panels and stuff could go in, and we'd look pretty good. So that's kind of the plan for now, sort of thing. But yeah, no, I'm really pleased with how it's going, and how it's sort of taking shape. But so we can go a bit further back yet, but I don't want to go too far back. Now this land here, it's this bit here, but I was kind of sort of like, you know, what on earth can we do with this? Yet again, we can take the level from this entrance, go across, go down, round, and all the way down there, and just try and level it off and smooth it off as much as we can. And we have to be a little bit mindful, because there's a gate at that end, and some of the auto drive courses again, for some reason, drive through this field. So we have to be a little bit mindful about, like, how we develop this, you know, because we mustn't block that course, otherwise a lot of auto drive courses are not going to work. So we can't block it. But I was thinking we could put all grain stores down here, Because again, in the future, we're going to have a lot more land. We're going to be growing a lot more stuff. We're going to be growing, you know, vegetables. We're going to be growing, you know, sort of all of the grains and cereals and all of the sort of pulse crops, you know, like peas and which we use soybeans for peas. But you know, we'll be growing them, you know, and we'll be sort of growing just about anything and everything this map has to offer. You know, and so I thought we're gonna need storage. You know, we're gonna need sheds for the veg. We're gonna, you know, to put them in that are temperature controlled. You know, so I thought that's what we might be able to do with this land, because we can literally again just take the level from here, get rid of the fence, get rid of the hedge and the fence. I didn't see the fence, by the way. That was like a guess. But we could get rid of the hedge. And then, as I say, we've sort of then got all of this and all of that, you know, to put, as I say, another shed in. So yeah, that's, you know, sort of kind of what I thought. I thought the sheep farm for now could be the machinery storage, because it's not a huge drive from there to here. You know, we've just done it within a few minutes, but as I say, like, you know, it's not a huge drive. But anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get back to the other end, and then when we get to the other end, when you rejoin me, because you probably don't want to do the drive back, when you rejoin me, I'll have the sprayer filled up, and we'll be going spraying, and we'll get that done, and then we'll get those fields sprayed, and then as I say, we can then the next episode, we're going to be drilling in the next episode, and I might even just do a little bit more on camera. I'm not doing too much of the digging on camera, just because A, I'm not that good at it, and it probably doesn't look that great, you know, because I am very clunky with it, but also as well, there's not really much goes on. It's just basically me swinging back and forth in an excavator digging the ground, you know. So as I say, it's not sort of a hugely exciting thing to watch, but I just thought I'd show you the progress that I have made, you know, because we have made a bit of progress, and then we'll go from there. But anyway, like I say, I'm just going to quit now, and then I'll see you back when we're in the sprayer and we're cracking on. So I'll see you in a minute. Alright, so I'm back. And as you can tell, I took a wrong turning. But it's okay, we can't get round from this way. Luckily I've taken that wrong turning a few times, and so I knew my way back round to the farm. Yeah, so let's say, well, what we'll do is we'll now jump into the sprayer, and we will crack on. Right, we'll leave this tractor here. There we go, that was a good guess. I knew I'd left the tractor and sprayer in a shed, and I couldn't remember which one. So that was a pretty good guess, wasn't it? But yeah, so what we'll do is we'll get this filled up with diesel as well. And then we're in March, you're kind of okay to keep your widest tyres on, but if that was sort of April, May that we was doing the spraying, then you'd definitely swap them over to row crops. But as I say, we'll got that filled up. Right, we'll go to the fields now and we'll just crack on. So what we'll do is we'll go down to the furthest one away, which is all the way down the way we've just sort of been, and then we'll work our way back. But as I say, we've got our lovely new sprayer, and as I said, you know, I've said before, you know, the machinery on this save, you know, in the beginning, it's going to be pretty much what I had on the first farm. So this is how and what I learned to spray in with the case tractor and the Vertoid, or however you pronounce that, sprayer. And that was what I learned spraying on, as I say, back in 2007. So I did the first bit of spraying in 2006. As people will know, I hired the John Deere tractor and plough, and went ploughing. So the idea was I was going to make sure that the local John Deere dealer would lend me a tractor and plough, because it was no good setting it all up and then they're like, no, we're not lending you. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of went to them and said, like, would you be willing? And it was like, why? And then I explained why, and they said, like, we actually like the initiative that you're taking. If you can find somewhere, we'll provide you with a tractor and plough, because I like initiative. I like people that are, trying to get on and, trying to do the right things to get where they want to be in life. And he said, therefore, like, we'll, at cost to ourselves, we'll lend you a tractor and a plough. So I then went to a farm, and I said to them, could I come in September to do some ploughing? I'll do it for free. The only thing is, I would like, you to provide the diesel for the tractor, but I'll work for free. I'll work all day, to whatever time you sort of say, but as long as you can provide the diesel. And the very first farm that I went to said no, and they said the only reason we're saying no, they said, because it is an exceptionally good deal. And they said the only reason we're saying no is that it was basically a farm that was run by three brothers, and they didn't have no one outside of the three brothers work on the farm. And the reason being was, and they said the only reason we're saying no is because we don't really have to comply to health and safety then, because we're just working for ourselves, and we sort of don't take it too seriously. We just do what needs doing, and we do it the best, quickest way how, and so therefore we're not sort of conforming fully to what we should be doing if we had people work for us, which then we would obviously have to do. And so they said, like, that's the only reason why we're saying no. And then they suggested a farm, and it was the farm I was going to next. The farm they suggested, and that was the farm that my granddad and most of my family have worked on. So I went to them next and showed the tractor and the plough, and said, I'll come and work for nothing. As long as you can provide the diesel, but I'll sort of do the work for free. And amazingly, they said yes. And as I say, the rest is history. But at the end of that 2 weeks that I was there, so I was there for about 2.5 weeks ish, something like that. At the end of that, on the last sort of couple of days, the boss man came to me and he said, like, we've been really, really impressed with what you've done, considering you've sort of never driven a tractor sort of like that before. You've never done no farming. You've sort of done, they said, look, basically your only sort of real tractor driving experience is the 2 weeks you had with us at school when you was on work experience, and then whenever you go to see your Uncle Stephen at Worths and do the work, and drive tractors with him. Like, that's literally the only experience you've got. And actually you've taken to this like a duck to water. You've basically, they said, like, you've come into the the job and what have you, and sort of started ploughing. They said, like, the first couple of days your ploughing was really, really wobbly and really not very straight, and they said, like, thereafter, a couple of so Ray, who worked on the farm, and John had said to the boss man, I take it he's got GPS on that tractor. And they said, and he said, why? And he said, well, because of how straight he's ploughing. And the boss man said, well, no, actually he hasn't. He said, like, it's literally him, the tractor and the plough, and that's all him. And I just instantly took to ploughing. I don't really know why. I mean, don't get me wrong. When I was a kid and on the crawler with my granddad, I loved ploughing. I loved going up and down with him on the track marshal, and it was really, really great. And I really sort of, as I say, just took to ploughing straight off. And as I say, the last sort of few days when I was sort of ploughing, I got ploughed the land that they'd sort of set aside that they thought would last 2 weeks. Well, I ploughed that within the first week. And they were like, you know, I was like, okay, fair enough. We'll find some more. And then I went, and I also did, to be fair, I think a day and a half, 2 days on another farm, that work that they'd got me, because I'd literally I'd caught them up, and they had no more land to be ploughed for a few days until they could get, like, you know, the sugar beet and stuff being moved. And so they said, like, you know, what we've done is so that you're not at home and wasting your time and that, you know, when you've hired a tractor and stuff, go to this farm and they've got 2 days ploughing for you, and by the time you've done that, you know, and then get back here, we'll have more land cleared, and, you know, you can sort of carry on, you know, ploughing for us then. And so I went and did that, and as I say, the last sort of couple of days after I got everywhere sort of ploughed up that they wanted ploughed for that year, they then sort of started saying, you know, well, you know, what other jobs would you like to have a go at, you know? And I sort of said, like, you know, spraying. I said I wouldn't mind having a go at that. So they was like, okay. So you know, the next day we had some spraying off to do, and they got me on the case, and got me, you know, on this setup, this tractor and sprayer setup, which is what I had, and or what they had. And, you know, that was how I learnt to spray. And then when I joined full time in the August of 2007, so it was nearly a year later, but you know, as they said, you know, they didn't really have enough work for 4 of us, because they struggled to find work for 3, and so I had to wait almost a year. But by then Jim was retiring at the end of sort of that sort of autumn period where, you know, the work sort of kind of flat out, and once he realised that I was quite keen, good, you know, whatever, he basically said to the boss man, he said, look, he said, I don't really need to be coming in, I don't really want to come to work every day, you know, just let Jamie do it all, like, you know. And so he started having sort of days off here, you know, and sort of time off there and what have you, and I just sort of carried on. And John, who I worked with, eventually became good friends with, he tried to make life quite difficult at first. He was constantly shouting, constantly ordering me around, and, you know, what have you. And they kind of sort of said to me, look, you've you know, ignore John. John is John, and this is what he's like with everybody. But eventually, because I didn't argue back with him, because I didn't answer him back, because I just did as he sort of said and wanted and what have you, eventually he stopped. You know, he eventually just kind of stopped being that guy, and you know, I was eating, because so him and Jim used to stop, you know, at the same end of the field, and they'd have lunch together, sit in their own tractors, but they'd have lunch together, and they would sort of opposite face each other, door open, sit chatting. But he'd never done that with me. If I pulled up alongside him to have lunch, he'd drive to the other end of the field, you know. And I used to think, oh, do you know what, sod you, I'm not that bothered, do you know what I mean? And then one day, I was power and he was drilling, and I stopped for my dinner, and he drawed up alongside and opened his door. And as I say, from sort of that kind of moment on, we, you know, just sort of never looked back and became sort of really good friends. And the boss man said to me, he says, I don't know how you've done it, he said, but he's taken to you. He said, like, you know, he said he hasn't really liked anyone that's come and worked here, you know, and he said, but he seems to have taken to you. And I just said, like, you know, I said, it's easy with John, just let him think he's right all the time, you know. I said, it's no skin off my nose, it doesn't bother me. I said, because I'm going to end up doing it the way I think anyway. I said, like, but you just go, oh yeah, right, yeah, I didn't think of that, you know, oh yeah, that's a good point, you know. I said, there's no, you know, I said, he's basically I said he's got this kind of in his head that no one likes him and that he's the top man and what have you. But the trouble is, no one lets him be the top man because in his own head, that's what he is. I said, and so therefore, I said, like Ray, Ray would tell you himself. He used to argue with John, take the mick out of him and what have you. Whereas I just sort of thought, I don't really care if that's what you think about yourself. Great. Do you know what I mean? Like, no skin off my nose. I don't care. I'm clearly not, the top man here. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm just a sort of general dog's body tractor driver. It doesn't bother me. That's, what I wanted to be like. So if you want to be top dog and you want to be, the one that's in charge and knows everything, you be that bloke. Do you know what I mean? Like, it makes no difference to me. So I just kind of, as I say, I just sort of got along and, and I said to, the boss man and said to Ray, I said, it doesn't cost anything to listen to someone. I said, you don't have to take a blind bit of notice of them, but it doesn't cost anything to listen to them. I said, and anyway, I said, even if, I said, I listen to him, and I said, and most of the time, I learn absolutely nothing. I said, but sometimes I think, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way. That's a good suggestion, yeah, I might start doing that. I said, like, because I sat and listened and didn't argue and didn't, sort of answer back and, sort of stuff like that. I said, like, I said, it really doesn't, it's no skin off my nose sort of thing, like, and that's how I got on sort of there. And as I say, in the end, me and John sort of became like really good friends and yeah, he'd have his days and he'd have his moments and, if he'd come to work and he hadn't got a bit the night before, he perhaps was a bit grumpy and what have you, but and if he was in a really good mood, I used to say to him, I used to say, hey up, someone got lucky last night, and he used to look at me and shake his head and he goes, is that all you kids think of? I said, well, yeah. I said, that's all there is, isn't there? I said, surely that's the only point you got married for, wasn't it? And he goes, I did like her as well. I said, nah, don't waste your time with liking people. I said, just jump on. And he like, and as I say, like, I know obviously I used to have Emma, who's my ex now. She used to, but was my partner, obviously girlfriend, fiance, whatever at the time. And she used to come to work, in the evenings and that with us, like when we were harvesting or, when I was sort of busy and that, so we could sort of have a bit of time together, but I'd still be at work. And when we was combining, she, I'd sort of go home from a tea. Always went home from a tea at 5 o'clock. Had to be back by 6. So I had to finish tea by sort of 5. Although tea was always on the table when I walked through the door. Cause I used to go home to mum's for tea. So tea was always on the table. And then I used to finish tea by 5. And then quickly race over to Long Sutton and pick Emma up and then take her back to the farm with me. And then she'd be like, I remember the first night, she goes, the first time like on harvest, and she goes, well, I can't wait, I'd love to see what, goes on and what you all do and like, and of course she, we got to work and John came back in the trucks, me and him came back at 6. And he and because I'd gone into the workshop and she was sort of standing outside and I'd gone into the workshop. I can't remember what I was doing or whatever, but I'd gone into the workshop and he went, hello, who the hell are you? She goes, oh, I'm James's girlfriend. And he was like, oh yeah. He goes, come with me. He said, I got something to show you. So anyway, she sort of goes off with him and I've come out of the workshop not aware of what has happened. And I'm sort of kind of thinking, well, where the hell she gone? And next thing I know, coming past on the combine was her and John, and literally we finished that night at about sort of 11:30, 12:15. She got off the combine, got on the tractor and said to me, she goes, oh, I've really enjoyed that. And I said, yeah. I said, it was fantastic, me and you getting to spend some time together, wasn't it? I said, that was the reason why you was invited down. I said, the boss man felt bad because we was working sort of long hours and late and we didn't live together like John and his wife. I said, so the boss man said, I'll bring her to work with you tonight and then you can spend a bit of time together. And I said you ended up spending it with John. But yeah, so as I say, she but yeah, she enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. And then the next morning when we was in the workshop, he said, "Corey," he said, your missus is a bit unique, ain't she?" And I said, "How come?" She said, "Well," she said, like, he said he said, like, I was he said, I was doing what, I do. I said, "What, quizzing her?" So he goes, "Yeah." So he said, and she was just telling me everything. He said, honestly, he said, you got to hope she never gets interrogated about the two of you. I said, okay, fair enough. He said, yeah. He said, I now know all your secrets. I said, well, there we go. But yeah, so as I say, that was, the way it was. But yeah, this save, as I was originally saying, is, as I say, based on the equipment that we had, apart from the new John Deere crawler that we've purchased. I think that was in the last episode as well that I introduced that. I think it was, or the episode before that, within the last 2 episodes anyway. We didn't have that crawler, but I was looking for something else and come across that crawler, and I thought, oh, actually that would make a really nice little addition and fit in nicely with the farm that we've got at the moment. And also as well, I was looking for a little bit higher horsepower tractor to pull a slightly bigger drill, and obviously that's what we've managed to do, sort of thing. So I'm although it's not pulling a bigger drill, it's still pulling our drill that we had in the anyway, but it's still doing, fantastic job in this field, absolutely fantastic. In all the fields, the tram lines are very straight, which is good, because it was doing my head in having wonky tram lines. I am fairly straight when I sort of do stuff like that, but there are times when I either lose concentration or maybe can't always see the marks in the field, and then end up a bit all over the place. So the fact that they're now nice and straight like this does my OCD the world of good. And you can see from the tram lines, not in this field, but the one the field in front of us, and then the field beyond that, they're dead in line. This field is a little bit off to one side. I think is the reason why they're not dead in line like they should be. Either that or I've marked it wrong, and we've ended up slightly off course. I don't know, but I say it's still not bad, so we're doing all right. But yeah, so I don't know. I used to do chatty videos on this series, and then I sort of kind of stopped. And the other day I was sort of going through my channel and sort of looking at videos and sort of what was I doing then that I think is good, what am I doing now that's perhaps not so good and I need to get back to doing, sort of thing, and trying to learn and trying to sort of see where the views are, where the likes are, where the comments are, and sort of good or bad, because you need a balance. You need to see the bad ones as well as the good ones. And touch wood, apart from again today, yesterday was my birthday, and I didn't respond on my birthday, but I woke up to an email yesterday. So this has happened before. And it is kind of tempting now to remove my email address from my YouTube account, because, as I say, this has happened before. So I woke up yesterday to with my birthday, and it was my birthday, and I had a message from someone who watches my videos on YouTube wishing me happy birthday. It was fantastic. I really appreciated that. Like, really did. Really did. So thank you to that person. You know who you are. And like, as I say, it really, really did. Like, I was, as chuffed as I could be. I know it sounds weird, but like, you know, I proper was, and so I received, as I say, that message, and that was a YouTube comment on the video that just said, you know, like, happy birthday, which was, like I say, really fantastic. And then I went into my email account, and I had an email from a viewer, or from, you know, someone who watched my videos from YouTube, but instead of putting it in the comments, they'd put it in an email to me. And yeah, so I'd say I'd had this, I got this email from this person, and let's just say it wasn't the politest emails I've had. And I say this is the second time, but this was a different person from the first time. Either that, or they've just changed their username. I don't know. But yeah, basically, I don't know why you keep releasing videos. No one's interested. Nobody watches. Nobody cares. No one likes you. We all think you're a and it's like, I just don't know why you do it. So I this time, unlike last time where I didn't respond, but this time I decided to email back, and I I just said the only reason I keep releasing videos and putting stuff on YouTube is because I know it really annoys you. But I'd say normally I wouldn't kind of get involved, but it's like, you know, the second time within sort of 3 or 4 months that this has happened. Like I say, whether they've changed their username, it's the same person, I don't know, but you know, I mean, don't get me wrong, you know, it doesn't get me down or upset or, you know, anything like that, but I just sort of think, really, you know, is that what you've got to do in a day? Like, you know, if you don't like what I do, just don't look at it, you know, just don't watch it. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know. But yeah, so never mind. So we'll get this done, get this completed, this spraying. I know it's going to be a little bit of a long video, but yeah, what the hell, we've got time, haven't we? But as I say, we've only got this field to do, and then that field, and then we're done then. Because the other field, is ploughed, and we'll obviously have to start pulling that down, and then getting that ready for drilling. We're going to put sugar beet in there, so I have decided what we're going to do. We're going to put sugar beet in there. I'm hoping as well that as the summer months go on, we'll also obviously carry on down the other end with the work that we're doing, the groundwork that we're doing, and obviously we'll be selling stone because we're going to need a way to harvest the sugar beet, and obviously I don't really want to hire, you know, one of the big sugar beet harvesters. I'd like to, if I can, because sugar beet's going to be, you know, sort of in our rotation now, I'd like to be able to sort of harvest it ourselves. I think I know the way that I, you know, kind of want to do that. So we could go for a little tiny trailed sugar beet harvester with a bunker and sort of do it that way. Or we could maybe look for a really cheap, really old, you know, self-propelled beet harvester. But I think the chances of us finding that are pretty slim. But yeah, so we'll try and find a little way of doing it, you know, that kind of fits in with you know, what we're doing at the moment with the machinery wise, and try and do it. But yeah, so that's the plans. We as I say, that's the plan that I would like to sort of you know, get in action, sort of, so to speak. What we'll do is, you wouldn't really do this in real life, but Well, I suppose you would. A couple of times, I guess, I used to turn around in the tram lines to go back on myself. So yeah, I guess you would. But probably not supposed to. But I did do it a couple of times. It did become easier though. So the second year that I worked on the farm, we changed this setup. So we got rid of the trout sprayer, and we bought, or the farm bought, a Bateman self-propelled sprayer, and yeah, it was a nice sprayer. I mean, it was old, you know, it was second hand. It got quite a few hours, or quite a few, you know, 1,000 hours on the clock. It had been owned by a vegetable farm, funnily enough, actually. Now, kind of, you know, how coincidences work. So I was working on the farm, and the boss man came to me and said, like, we're going spraying today. You know, yeah, right, you know, which I expected, you know. So I was like, yeah. He said, Annie, I need you to do something for me first. So I was like, okay. So he said, I've rung you a taxi. I said, you've rung me a taxi? He said, yeah. I said, what on earth have you rung me a taxi for? He said, it's going to take you to a farm. So I said, right. He said, we're going to borrow a sprayer off them. I said, okay. He said, now you're going to get a crash course on how to use it. So I was like, yeah. He said, and then obviously drive it back here. So I said, yeah. He said, and then obviously we'll do some spraying with it for a couple of days. And if we like it, we'll buy it, you know. So I was like, right. I said, so why are you ordering me a taxi then? He said, well, because I need the taxi to get you to the farm. So I said, well, can't you take me? He said, no. He said, I don't want to drive all that way. I said, oh, it's a long way away, is it? He said, yeah, it's a little way away. He said it's Pinchbeck. So I said, all right. I said, oh yeah. I said, not 2 minutes down the road. He said, no. He said, it is a little way away. So I said, oh, okay, fair enough. So I don't know what's the matter with this sprayer, actually, just cutting myself off, but it's not emptying very quick, is it? So I might have to go into the XMLs and have a look at the spray usage rate there, and just see why that's not emptying as it should be, because I've only used, well, actually it's not even going down, is it? Why is that not even going down? Why is that not even going down? That's a bit odd, that. Don't know. But it needs spraying. I was going to say, I did pre-check the fields before I began to see whether or not they did actually need spraying. I did check them. But yeah, anyway, so got in the taxi, went to this farm. Well, the veg farm that owned the sprayer was part of, and I didn't know this, so the second farm that I ended up working on, I obviously knew them because they had sort of 3 farms in and around where I live, and obviously I knew that they were a big farm. I knew, you know, they had big machinery. I also knew the chances of me ever getting on there were very zero, and I mean very zero. But so in Pinchbeck, they had the people that owned the farm, the second farm. They had relations. So the sons were who ran, or the son was who ran the farms near to me. But his dad's brother farmed out in Pinchbeck and all that way to Boston, to and that way. And when I joined, or just before I joined, about a year or two earlier, they'd all joined together and made one massive farm. And so, but I went there not knowing that they were related. You know, obviously sort of started to put 2 and 2 together when they had the same, when, you know, they had the same name. And I was like, all right, I didn't realise, they were all out here. Anyway, I had my crash course, went back, did some spraying, bought the sprayer, right? And as I say, it was a bit odd because that was, I say, in my second year working there. And then a couple of years later, I hadn't realised that the two big farms, the two farms had merged, like where I went to get the sprayer and the second farm that I worked on. I hadn't realised that they'd merged. And when when Adrian came and, as I say, sat and watched me ploughing the day that he did, and I mean, that was in and around the time that YouTube was starting to sort of kick off a little bit in terms of people going out and filming tractors in the fields and then sort of putting it on YouTube. And I'd had it a couple of times where someone was, sort of in the field and what have you, sort of filming. I guess sort of phones were getting, better, cameras were getting better and what have you. And as I say, it was just sort of, it wasn't widespread like it is now. I mean, like literally, you drive by fields now, and it's like people have paid to go in and watch. Do you know what I mean? Like I mean, I was coming back from Mildnall, and I was going to Mildnall last Saturday racing, and I went past this field, and there was like, I think it's about 4 New Holland T8s in there, blue power with half track, at the back. And there was 4 of them, a couple of John Deere 8 RXs, and there was, I can't remember if it was Case or whether they were Fendt or whatever they were, but they were quite away in the distance. I couldn't really see them quite so well because obviously I've got cataracts and I can't see long distance. But they were right near and the amount of people that were stood with their phones out inside the field filming all of these tractors. And I was like, I was kind of like, I thought, if I didn't think I was going to be late, I thought I too would stop now and join them. I was thinking, because I can't look a prat. When sort of, I mean, there must have been 10 or 15 people in there, like, filming, and I was like, bloody hell, when I worked on the second farm, so you've now fast forwarded sort of 5 years, and I'm now working on the second farm. When I sort of started on there, it had become even more widespread because we used to have sort of 4 or 5 chats when we were drilling. So what we used to do was we would have veg land that would sort of come clear, and then they would want me to plough it. But when we were doing like the weeds and stuff like that, to try and help with blackgrass, they would have sugar beet on all the land that was coming wheat, or most of the land that was coming wheat, because there were actually other crops that we did have ahead of first wheats. But sugar beet was part of that. And what they would do is they grow sugar beet. Obviously, sugar beet being a spring crop, you can control blackgrass in spring crops, a lot better than autumn crops. And then they would get the sugar beet off quite late, so like sort of mid to late October, they would get the sugar beet off. And then what they would do is they'd have me in there ploughing, but the other 4 challengers would be in there pulling down, and drilling and subsoiling. So you'd have a subsoiler in front of me, so you'd have it subsoiled, I'd plough it. If it was really wet, they wouldn't subsoil it, but if it was dry when it was coming off, they would have a subsoiler in there ahead of me, sort of thing. And then you'd have me ploughing, and then you'd have 2 powering or using the Simba presses. So that's 2 6-meter Simba presses, and as I say, my plough was the equivalent of like a 6-meter cultivator, so it ploughed sort of 6 meters wide. And as I say, you'd end up with 5 challengers in the field together. And we a couple of times when we were out Wisbech way, working, so you'd have like the 2 sugar beet harvesters in the field, Then the Challenger subsoiling, another Challenger like me ploughing. So you'd perhaps even have 2 Challengers subsoiling, me ploughing, and then 2 more pulling down behind, and then the drill. So yeah, I mean, you could have anywhere up to 6 Challengers in the field. You know, as I say, like, and that, you know, was how we drilled our wheat and our barleys and stuff like that. Well, mainly our wheat, actually, to be fair. As I say, winter barley would have been in long before that. So yeah, but so that's how they used to drill the wheat, to try and control the black grass in it. So it's literally get it ploughed, get it drilled, and then get it pre-emmed. Then get it post-emmed, and then, you know, sort of keep on top of it that way as much as they could. But yeah, it was good times, you know, and like I say, I really enjoyed it, and I do, you know, I enjoy doing YouTube now. I sort of make the best of my life that I can sort of now, and I say, like, YouTube's a big part of that, and I enjoy it. And I know sometimes it gets me a little bit, you know, low when, you know, sort of views are not coming in and what have you, but you know, I do enjoy doing it. It gives me something to do in the day. It gives me a focus. It gives me, you know, something to get up for and to, you know, to try for. And you know, but if you gave me the ultimate, you know, I'd much rather be, you know, sort of working on the farm or whatever. I mean, it's good that they're local, and I can just sort of, when I can see that they're working not too far from where I live, you know, I sort of have a walk up, and I can, you know, have a ride on the tractors and that, and sort of keep involved a little bit. But yeah, you know, I'd love to be out there myself doing it. You know, and a couple of times, like, I've sort of even this spring, I've sort of seen Kerry working up not too far away, and I've gone up there, and she's gone, "Do you want to have a drive?" It's like, yes, please. So it's really good. But yeah. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this field finished, because I've pretty much done all the fields, and this video is going to go on far too long if I don't. So I'm going to get this field done, and thank you all so much for watching. I'm going to leave it here. So next episode we'll be busy with drilling our sugar beet, or planting our sugar beet, and we'll get on with that, and then we will carry on as well with our groundworks that we're doing at the pig farm. Hopefully we should soon start to have enough money to start getting the pigs in there and getting them actually up and running and going. We're a long way from being able to afford, you know, our slaughterhouse being built. We're a long way from that, so, you know, we haven't got to sort of worry about that too much. We're a long way from achieving that. And yeah, we'll just sort of keep building plans and keep, you know, sort of doing stuff for the future. But anyway, as I say, if you've liked this episode, you know, why not give it a thumbs up? If you haven't done already, why not subscribe? It really does help me, helps the channel. And yeah, all that's left for me to say is thanks ever so much for watching me on this episode. I've really enjoyed having your company, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye for now.